Hello everybody, Maven here, and Pulse Rifles finally got a damage buff, but honestly they need more damage buff. They got a 12.5% buff against minors and majors. And that begs the question, what is the best Pulse Rifle in the entire game? And also, are Pulse Rifles even good? Now, I have preached this in videos before, and I'll preach it again, but I firmly believe that Pulse Rifles are the worst weapon type in PvE. And I cringe a little inside when somebody on my fire team's using a Pulse Rifle. If you're using a pulse, it's for one of two reasons: shooting trash mobs or stunning a champion. There is nothing else other than that. So because of the fact that you're going to be mainly shooting trash mobs with a pulse rifle, you probably want to be using an exotic pulse rifle because they do 40% more damage to minors than legendaries. And we're not going to be testing any legendary pulse rifles in this video for that reason, because I strongly believe that they have no place in PvE until they get another extra damage buff, because they are that bad. So we're only testing the exotics because there's actually some that are quite strong. So let's put them all to the test, except the Vigilance Wing, because that's a crucible weapon. So let's test the other 6 exotic pulse rifles and figure out which one is the best PvE pulse rifle. Let's get to it. Don't forget to drop a like because it helps out a ton, and I hope you enjoy. So we got 3 tests to do with these pulses, and I'll be ranking them from 0 to 5 in these areas. First off, we got easy content, which usually means tight, clustered, ad clear, so we'll go to breakneck for this test. And then we're going to do a DPS comparison against Carl to see how these pulses fare against chunkier targets in the case that you're out of ammo and have to result to your primary. And then there's tougher content, or endgame content, which is usually like a little bit of a step up from things like dungeons and raids. So let's start off with the clustered ad clear test in the breakneck mission. So probably the most common situation you'll find in this game, especially in content where you would use a pulse rifle. So let's start off with the Outbreak Perfected. This weapon has both a great balance of damage and ad clear. So if you get a critical kill, not only does it make a very satisfying sound effect, but it also creates a swarm of Siva nanites comparable to a solar swarm grenade at the target's location. Also, the more you shoot a target, the more nanites you stick to their body, which applies a pseudo DOT effect to them, and you do more damage to them based on the number of nanites attached to them. So Outbreak is a great option when you run out of ammo. As for ad clear though, getting a critical kill is not the easiest thing to do with the pulse compared to something like a scout rifle or hand cannon. It's great when you can get it to happen, but it's not always going to happen. And moving on to the Revision Zero, this thing got a wide array of buffs ever since it came out, and it hits really hard and will 1 or 2 shot most trash mobs, but it's not really an ad clear weapon. Now you can slap on potential ad clear perks at the crafting table, but you're not really going to do that, because if you're going to run any perk combo in PvE, it's going to be 4th times a charm vorpal weapon. You gotta have that perk combo for the damage output potential. The only thing to really mess with is your preference between the 2 burst and 4 burst modes, and in my experience the 2 burst mode is better for ad clear and the 4 burst mode is better for tougher content because you can get off more headshots to charge the sniper perk quicker. So because the lack of collateral potential, this is more of the kind of weapon that you keep your distance and play slowly with. And if that's your playstyle, this is quite possibly the best pulse for you. Now moving on to the no time to explain, and to be honest with you, during all the tests I did in this video, the no time to explain was the one that exceeded my expectations the most. It's not bad in all honesty. I tried it last season and it was horrible, but the pulse buff really made a huge impact on the no time, because not only did it buff the pulse itself, but it's also buffing the time chasm turret you get for landing 10 headshots. And for so long, I never really cared about this gun, so I just barely found out that precision hits and hits against slow to frozen targets and kills with a turret will refund ammo directly into the magazine. And another cool little benefit of this gun is that the turret still puts in the work while you're busy reloading, so you never really miss a beat with this weapon. But similar to the Outbreak, having to land those precision hits can be somewhat of a task sometimes, but once you get it going, it's nice. And I also found Feeding Frenzy to be very satisfying on it. Next up, the Bad Juju, and shameless plug, I did utilize the Bad Juju on my recent Celestial Nighthawk build video, and I'll link that in the card up above and in the description if you'd like to check it out. So this thing is a beast for recharging your super. In this clip, I'm on Strand, and this thing is a dang roaming super with a slow recharge, and I'm on tier 3 intellect, and still pay attention to how fast I get my super back. So if you hadn't noticed, the Bad Juju fully reloads its magazine on final blows, which is convenient for ad clear, and it has a Rampage-esque type of ability called String of Curses. At maximum stacks, which is 5, you get a 52% damage buff, and in my Celestial Nighthawk video, I was pairing that along along with Radiant and Kinetic Surge ×3, and that thing was slapping harder than a machine gun. It's insane. And the more String of Curses stacks you have, the more super energy the gun generates. This thing may not have any collat perks like the Outbreak, for example, but I think it makes up for it in the String of Curses and the Mega Subsistence, and of course the super energy. Now moving on to the Graviton Lance, and I think it speaks for itself. Cosmology is ridiculous, dude. I'm sure you've seen the viral clips of people clearing the Crotazen Shrieker hallway in one shot with this thing. You've probably also seen people clear an entire wave of Altars of Sorrow with one shot as well. The Graviton Lance is honestly among the best ad clear weapons in the entire game, up with things like Trinity Ghoul and Sunshot, and possibly even ahead of those. So just take a look at this screenshot here. Look at my kill tracker on Graviton. I have over 20,000. You want to know how long it took me to get that? 2 days. Not kidding. The weekend it got buffed, I farmed the Guardian Games event with it and got 20k in just 2 days. It's such a broken ad clear gun. Now moving on to the collective obligation. So for this one, we're going to be using the Gear Falcon's Hauberk so we can get volatile rounds. And that may sound like an unfair advantage to you, but that's genuinely the only way to make this gun work. It's the easiest way to proc the Void Leech buff, and that's what this gun is meant to do. So that's how we'll be using it in this video. But in this video, we won't be using Surges or Radiance or anything. This is the only exception to somewhat of an external buff. So similar to Bad Juju, it has a perk that fully reloads itself on final blows when you gain a void buff such as Devour, an Overshield, or Invis, which is chaining all the time on Gear Falcons with Stylish Executioner. So between the mag always autoloading, the damage buff from the Void Leech perk, and the endless volatile rounds, safe to say this gun is great for ad clear. So on to the scorecard for round 1 here. For the easy content ad clear, I'm going to give the Outbreak Perfected a 3. It has collab potential, but relying on a critical kill is not the best thing in every situation. For the Revision 0, I won't rank it at a 0, but I'll give it at least 1 point because it does chunk ads pretty hard in the 2-burst mode and has intrinsic anti-barrier, so it can do work in tougher content, but it's kind of atrocious for easy content. For the No Time to Explain, I'll give it a 3 as well. It bumps itself up to a 4 when Time Chasm's online, but it can sometimes be a struggle to proc it. And for Bad Juju, I'll give it a 4 because once you get String of Curses rolling, it goes from a lawnmower to a steamroller. It just shreds through ads like a hot knife through butter. And for the Graviton Lance, no explanation needed for this one. Easy 5 out of 5. Cosmology is just insane. And for the collective obligation, I'll give it a 4. It may have the auto-loading mag just like the Bad Juju, so it's only a matter of arguing over the endless volatile rounds versus the 52% String of Curses damage buff, so I think they kind of even out in my eyes. So now let's move on to the Carl DPS comparison and rip the frames as I was editing this video. So this was the most realistic Revision 0 clip I was willing to get. Started off without the sniper buff, charged it naturally, and even missed a crit. I felt that was incredibly realistic because if I started out with the sniper mode active and landed every crit, it would just obliterate him. And at that point, it's really not a pulse rifle comparison. It would just be a sniper versus 5 pulse rifles. So I hope you understand. Anyways, for the Outbreak, it was an easy 3 mag kill, even with a bunch of crits missed, and it's worth mentioning that the DPS of Outbreak goes up more if people in your fire team are using it as well, because the nanites that stick to a target are universal for the whole fire team. Now, like I mentioned before about the No Time to Explain, it really exceeded my expectations. We managed to pick up a 2 mag kill because precision hits reload ammo back into the magazine, so if I tried hard enough, I maybe could have snagged a 1 mag kill with enough tries. I was actually pretty impressed and did not expect it to perform this well. And Graviton Lance kind of surprised me as well because it's not a DPS weapon. It has no damage perk, yet it still somehow hits pretty hard just because of the archetype. It's a very unique archetype, only 2 weapons got it, and the mag size it has is pretty good as well. It's not a soft hitting pulse by any means. And for the collective obligation, this gun could be insane if you're actually building into it, because when you proc Void Leech, your bullets can apply volatile, weaken, and suppress all at the same time. But in this clip here, we just stuck with volatile alone for the sake of the base comparison. And do we even need to talk about the Bad Juju? I mean, it's not, and I mean not, a DPS weapon in the slightest. This thing is an ad clear machine, but when you try to take out a bigger target, you lose your 52% String of Curses buff, and the thing becomes a pellet gun. It also has a small mag size because it relies on ad clearing to proc that mega subsistence. But when you actually try to kill a big target and can't proc that reload, you only have a 9 burst mag from a 450 pulse, which is quite pathetic. So on to the scorecard, Outbreak is getting a 5 out of 5. It was already good in that clip, but it only gets better because the damage just ramps up and up and up from there. Revision 0 gets a 4 because while it does do very good damage, it relies entirely on crits, which can be easy to miss because that sniper has like 69 million zoom. No Time to Explain gets a 4 because of its ease of use. It may not be the highest DPS in the world, but when you compare it to the Revision 0, you can miss a few crits and still eventually proc that time chasm, whereas crits for the Revision 0 are absolutely detrimental. Bad Juju gets a 0 out of 5, no need to explain that one. Graviton Lance gets a 2.5. It doesn't have anything that particularly contributes to DPS, but naturally for what it is, it just hits pretty hard alone. And the Collective Obligation also gets a 2.5. It's solid when you have Void Leech going wild, but without it, it's comparable to the Bad Juju. Now on to the endgame test, and as usual, I gotta give the mandatory reasoning of why we're going to the Hydroponics Delta. So this is a Sunshot body shot against a Legionary in the Root of Nightmares raid, and this is a Sunshot body shot against a Legionary in Hydroponics Delta. Ads in Hydroponics Delta have twice the health that raid ads have, making it a great place to test endgame builds and weapons. So with that being said, let's get to the testing. So let's start off with the Outbreak Perfected. Now this content is comparable to legend level content, the type of content you would find champions in, and this season we actually have an overload pulse rifle mod. And the Outbreak Perfected, being able to ramp up in damage the way it does, it is a great anti-champion weapon whenever there's a champion mod present for it, meaning it's an amazing Grandmaster weapon to use this season when overload champions are present, and more so if more people in your fire team use the Outbreak as well, so you can benefit off of each other's nanites. Now I feel the Hydroponics Delta is kind of like the perfect place to do the endgame test because you got a little bit of everything: clustered ad clear, 2 chunky majors, elites, and generally beefier targets. And the Outbreak, being the jack of all trades that it is, it's a reliable option through and through for every situation. It does every job reasonably well, so you cannot go wrong. I got a friend named Cherry who never takes the Outbreak off, and I totally understand why. She's been using it for years and never ever takes it off. And honestly, if you run Outbreak, nobody can ever say that you're throwing because it always puts in the work some way, somehow. And I do wish it was just a tiny bit better at ad clear, but I'm not going to be picky about it. And one hidden benefit of the Outbreak out of all other pulse rifles is that it's just the best feeling one. It's extremely stable, it's pretty, has nice sights, it makes a very satisfying sound effect on precision kills, so Outbreak definitely wins on the aesthetic factor out of everything. Now let's move on to the Revision 0. Now since there are a lot of ads here, I will be using the 2 burst mode because I just find it harder to ad clear with the 4 burst. However, if I did use the Revision 0 in a Grandmaster Nightfall, I would use the 4 burst mode because the ads are so tanky that I can more reliably proc 4 times a charm on them with those 4 bursts and build up that sniper mode a lot quicker, which I would rely on a lot more in that difficulty of content. And another reason that it's a great Grandmaster pulse is because it has intrinsic anti-barrier, and this season they give it a massive buff so that it does 100% more damage to champions. So if you have that sniper mode ready, you can absolutely demolish champions with it. However, one thing to note if you are a newer player and did not know is that it will not stun overload champions with the overload pulse mod because it already intrinsically deals with a different champion type, so you cannot have it deal with 2 champions at once, which is kind of a bummer. But still, as far as tougher endgame content goes, I feel that Revision 0 may be one of the strongest pulses, comparable or even better than Outbreak Perfected because of its range, utility, and hard-hitting single target damage. It's just a great weapon to sit back with. But for easy content, I feel it's one of the worst. It's definitely a pulse for those with the slower and safer playstyle who are not trying to speedrun. So it's not for me, but I can see its potential. Now let's move on to the No Time to Explain, and I'll say this for the 3rd and final time of this video, but it exceeded my expectations. I'm honestly having a great time with the No Time, and I'll probably be building into it in the near future because I'm curious how it will perform at its full potential. So a hidden benefit of the No Time is that I have poor eyesight, so the fact that the Time Chasm turret will find those targets for me is extremely helpful. And by the way, the Time Chasm turret has incredible range. It was hitting targets at like 50 something meters away. It's actually pretty dang good, I'll admit. And against that beefy Colossus, I was able to take him out in 1 mag because of the refill perk, which was very satisfying. So it definitely does not lack in the damage department. And Feeding Frenzy makes the gun reload lightning quick, which is nice. Now personally, I have not ever tried the no time in a Grandmaster Nightfall, but I have the feeling that it won't be amazing. Moving from area to area and losing that time chasm, I feel like it's going to be annoying to go into engagements without it, and constantly peek shotting out of cover, desperately struggling to get it online. Not sure if it's actually going to be like that. That's just the way I picture it in my head based off of my experience of nearly 900 Grandmaster clears. But all in all, I like this gun, and I'll definitely be trying it out more after this video ends. And if I can make an awesome build with it, I'll do a follow-up video. But now let's move on to the bad Juju, and it performs exactly as you expected. It does an amazing job at ad clear when you build up the 5 stacks of string of curses. It's a night and day difference and puts everything else to shame. But I'm definitely gonna have to chop out the clip of me killing the Colossus with it because it's just an embarrassment. This is definitely the kind of weapon you gotta pair with the fusion or shotgun so you can whip those out for the majors and just stick to the ad clear with the bad Juju. Because if you use it for what it's meant for, which is super gains and trash mobs, it absolutely does the job well. In my Celestial Nighthawk build video, I was able to get my Goldie back consistently in 30 seconds and even 20 seconds sometimes when the ads were more dense. Like I said earlier, you pair this thing with Kinetic Surges and Radiant, it chops down ads like they're nothing, dude. It kind of gets ridiculous. And for those who are newer to the game and didn't know, the bad Juju has a hidden perk where if you kill 134 ads without dying, it creates a huge explosion. I think the lore behind this ability is that there were 134 Ahamkaras that existed, and bad Juju is kind of an Ahamkara themed gun, but I don't know for sure. But yeah, I would say bad Juju is more of a build around gun. It's meant for super builds. Aside from that, I don't think I would really consider using it. So moving on to the Graviton Lance, my personal favorite, and the gameplay speaks for itself on why it's my personal favorite. It's just very good. There's no other way to put it really. It's just a very, very good gun. There's a reason why I got 20k kills on it in just 2 days. It slays out that hard. I was able to even deal with the Fat Colossus in just 2 mags, even though this is not meant to be a DPS weapon. It just hits that hard and has a decent mag size for it to put out a fair amount of damage. And another cool perk of this weapon is that 1 out of the 2 shots in each burst has infinite range, so that makes it viable for more spread out content where ads are all the way across the map. I haven't used this weapon in a Grandmaster before, but I imagine it would be viable because of the infinite range and ad clear potential, and I'll definitely be trying it out, as well as a no time to explain later this season when a GM with Overload Champions is in the rotation. Now yes, I am using Gear Falcon's Harbor for the collective obligation in this video, but when you add that to the Graviton as well, it just becomes more unfair than it already is. But one of the beauties of this gun is that you don't need to build around it at all. It's just incredible on its own. It does everything you hoped it would do and then some. If you have never given the Graviton Lance a try since the buff, trust me, you need to try it. Go pop 1 ad in Altars of Sorrow, and once you watch that 1 shot collat 100 targets, you'll be hooked. And finally, onto the collective obligation, of course with volatile rounds, and only volatile rounds. Not gonna lie, it does feel juicy and it does hit decently well, but you really gotta build into it. With all the other guns we tested, you can use those on any subclass really, but for this one could argue it could work on Controverse Hold or Hoyle, but it's mainly meant for Gear Falcon's Hauberk, so you're very limited as to what you can do with it. But when you put it on paper, this gun can be very, very strong when you build around it. Like I mentioned before, you can put together a build where you can leech, volatile, weaken, and suppress all at the same time. And your pulse being able to apply all those debuffs constantly can be pretty solid. But even when you have the stars aligned, it doesn't hit very hard because 390 pulses don't do a lot of DPS. This gun is mainly a tool for utility. It's a workhorse type of weapon. It's kind of like an all-around slightly above average weapon in every department, which makes it good, but there's nothing that it particularly shines at other than utility. So you can consider it an amazing pulse rifle when you think about it, but comparatively to the others, I would much rather use the Graviton Lance as my void pulse of choice over this one easily, because it's a gun that I don't have to put a lot of thought into when I use it. I just slap it on, it puts in the work, and I don't have to build around it. So on to the scorecard. So this score is not only for endgame content, but just an all-around score for most types of content that aren't exactly always a walk in the park at all times, that can present some type of challenge by throwing bulkier targets at you. So I'm giving Outbreak a 3.5 out of 5. It's reliable, it gets the job done, and I really considered bringing it up to a 4, but I'm giving the Revision 0 a 4 because it can more reliably take out trash mobs from greater distances than Outbreak while also having an intrinsic champion mod and a massive damage increase to champions, but the ad clear still leaves me wanting more. The note time to explain gets a 3 out of 5, and I honestly don't know how solidified I am on that score because I personally have not used this thing enough, but just from the time I had with it, I feel like it's a reliable weapon with a decent potential for both damage and ad clear. And the bad Juju is getting a 2.5 because it only shines in one area, and that's ad clear. But when it has the chance to do that, it does it very well. The Graviton Lance, I'm giving a 4.5 because it's absolutely incredible for ad clear, even when elites are in the mix, because cosmology helps soften them up as well, and the infinite range is great. But this weapon definitely lacks in DPS compared to things like Revision Zero, Outbreak, and No Time. And finally, the Collective Obligation gets a 3 because it's just all around an above average type of weapon. It's not particularly bad at anything, but it's not particularly cracked at anything. So that's my final scoring. I'd like to know your thoughts in the comments if I'm wrong about something or if I scored something poorly, because this is Destiny after all, and I'm sure everyone, especially Redditors, have an opinion to share. So final thoughts and TLDR, Revision Zero is the best endgame pulse for barrier champs, Outbreak for overloads, and Graviton is just the best pulse in the game in a general sense, and the one I would pick above all else. Feel free to discuss. So that's going to do it for this video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, be sure to hit the like button and drop a comment, because interacting with the video in different types of ways like that really helps out the algorithm. So it goes a long way if you click on something. And if you are new here, please consider subscribing. Would love to have you here. And with that, I'll catch you in the next video. See you later.